Hi guys, so this video is on adding and subtracting integers, but before we start, I want to go over some integer rules. Alright, so these rules we're going to be able to use for adding and subtracting, and also multiplication and division, but it's going to change slightly on what it means when we get there. But for now, let's think of it as adding and subtracting. So here's my little tic-tac-toe board. I'm always going to put it with my diagonal being my plus, and everything else being my minus. And what this means, how I read it, is if I have a problem with a negative and a positive, that is going to equal a negative. If I have a negative and a positive, it equals a negative, and two negatives make a positive. So what that tells me about adding and subtracting is that when I have different signs, it means I need to subtract, and same signs mean I need to add. All right, so let's look at example A at the bottom here. All right, so I have -6 and +7. So -6 and +7, these are different signs. So different signs means I need to subtract. So for a minute, I'm going to forget about what the numbers have in front of them. I'm going to just think about 6 and 7, and I'm going to subtract those. So when I subtract those, how many are left? I'm left with 1. Okay? Now, if I want to figure out what sign it is, I need to look at which number is bigger. Okay, so the number that was bigger was the 7, so that means my answer is going to be positive. Okay, let's look at the second one. Now the second one looks different because of this double sign. First, we need to get rid of that. All right, so how do I get rid of that? I use my chart. When I have two things next to each other, are they different? Are they the same? They're different, so that means to subtract. So I'm going to rewrite this question as 12, take away 15. All right, so now let's forget about the negatives for a minute. And are they the same signs or different signs? These are the same, so that means I'm going to add. So I need to think about the values like this. 12 plus 15 is equal to 27. All right, now I need to ask myself, is my final answer negative or positive? So we look, which number is bigger? The 15 is the bigger one, and it was negative, so that means my final answer is going to be negative. All right, a shark is swimming 60 feet below the surface. Okay, so that means -60. And there's a fish that is 25 feet deeper, so that means 25 feet more. So I want to ask you, is it getting deeper? Like, am I going further down or am I going up at all? I'm going further down. So that means my answer, I already know, because it wants to know, use the expression -60 plus -25 to describe the fish's location. I know the location is going to be further down, so that means my answer must be negative. All right, so now let's use our trick. I have two signs here. They're different, so it's going to change to subtraction. Okay, and now I look at these two, and they are the same. So I'm going to add my numbers. That's 85. But to get my final answer, I have to ask myself, is it going to be negative or positive? Which one was bigger? My 60 was the bigger number. So that means my answer is going to be -85. That makes sense. So it's -85 feet. All right, let's look at the bottom. It was 12 degrees when Preston got home from school. The weather report shows shows a storm front moving in that will drop the temperature by 17 degrees. So drop means minus. What is the expected temperature? What is the new temperature? Okay, so my 12 is positive, and this is negative, so they are different. So that means we need to subtract. So 17, take away 12, is 5. Then I ask myself, what is bigger? The 17 is bigger, so my answer is negative 5. All right. Lastly, I want to show you a trick on how to use a number line for this. Okay, so if we have numbers that are small, so it doesn't work when the numbers are really big, but let's say, for example, let's say we have negative 6 plus 8. This is how we can use two tricks. But it's hard to use these tricks when the numbers are really big. So let's say we're doing negative 6 plus 8. So I would start at negative 6. And then I have 8 positive, so I'm going to move 8 in the positive direction. And the positive direction is to the right, the negative direction is to the left. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That means my final answer is positive 2. Another way we can think about this is that negative 6 means 6 negatives. And positive 8 means 8 positives. And we can cancel out opposites. So if it's an opposite, so one negative cancels out with one positive. And I can keep doing that until there's none left. And whatever's left over is my answer. So that also gives me plus 2. All right, so those are some tricks you can use when the numbers are smaller, but we've got to think about it. If we look back at example, this one, the shark example, I had negative 60 and negative 25. Was I really going to draw negative 60 and negative 25 of them? Maybe. Maybe if the other thing doesn't work for me. All right? So bring this in class. We're going to do more of this on Friday.